Welcome to episode 33 of the Hike or Die Outdoor Adventure Podcast. I am joined, as always, by Craig.
Hey, mate. How you doing?
Very good. Craig, have you ever woken up for work when the alarm's gone off and thought, wow, I love my job. It's the best job in the world?
No.
Okay, yeah, good, correct answer. Well, interesting thing about our guest on the podcast today is he actually does wake up in the morning and think that. His name's Shawn Peach and he's an adventure cinematographer, but he's also much more than that. And I guess you'll learn all about it in this episode, won't you, Craig?
Absolutely.
Good stuff. Let's do it. Thank you, as always, to our regular podcast sponsors for their support. Topo Maps Plus, a phone application that allows you to view topographical maps and track your location even without cell phone coverage. Go deeper into the backcountry. Rios floating polarized sunglasses with 100% UV protection for the love of water. Bluey Merino, Australian superfine merino wool base, mid and top layer garments. Where our story ends, yours is just beginning. Caribou, one of Australia's leading backpack, travel and outdoor brands. They supply us with dry bags, waterproof day packs and expedition bags. Supporting our sponsors allows us to continue to produce this podcast, so please jump online and check out what they have to offer. We would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land from which we broadcast today and pay our respects to their elders, past and present. We extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander listeners. Craig, how are you, buddy?
Good, Tom. Thanks, mate. How are you?
Very good, thank you, mate. Craig, the world is full of change, is it not?
Every day.
Every day, including today. Listeners, we have put you through the pain of extensively long podcasts for far too long.
No doubt.
And we want to make it up to you. I've been doing a lot of thinking and having conversations with various people. And what I've decided and collectively decided with Craig is that we're going to split our content up and basically have shorter content more often. And I know a lot of you may not like the sound of that. I know a lot of you will say, oh, finally, a podcast under 3 hours. What a gift. So yeah, that's what we're looking at doing. And this is it, the very first one where we're going to do that. We're still planning on doing our news episodes, but there'll be a separate episode where we'll go into detail about what Craig and I have been up to, what we're planning to get up to, gear, shout-outs, all that other stuff. The same stuff that you're used to is still going to exist. It's just going to be in a different podcast episode. The reason for that is we want to bring you more content more often, and we just want it to be in more palatable bite-sized chunks. So it's a bit of a test, and it's definitely a bit of a risk considering we've had an ongoing format that hasn't really done us wrong for this long. So yeah, I hope you guys are cool with that. So as I said, you'll get this episode today without too much banter, and you can probably look forward to your regular news one in the very near future. What do you think about that, Craig?
Sounds great, man. I think it's as you say, the wind of change is upon us. It's about time we break this thing up a little bit. I reckon, yeah, the news can come at you in its own podcast and a little bit of interesting stories and tales that we'll tell.
Yeah, well, hopefully. I mean, that's the goal, isn't it? Usually interesting
That's what we're aiming for.
stuff. Yeah, we'll give it a shot. We'll steal somebody else's interesting stories if we have to. So that's about it. That's about all we're going to tell you today. If you enjoy what we're doing and you want to support us in any small way, jump over to ko-fi.com/HikeordieTV and you can support us that way. make sure you still jump on and, comment and let us know how you're going, because we still definitely want to maintain that contact with you guys. But that's it. I'm done.
Dive straight in.
I want to now introduce the guest that we've just spoken to. And what by just spoken to, I mean we did just literally get off the phone to him, and that's the beauty of doing it in this format, is that we get to share it quicker with you. Shawn Peach, as I said, he goes by the label of cinematographer, but he's a cinematographer of a more kind of, how'd you say, outdoorsy, sort of rugged kind. So he's used to dragging cameras and equipment into the wilderness in countries all around the world. He's got some fantastic tales. It was so good spending time with him on the podcast. Craig, have you got anything to add to that?
No, mate, he's got some great stories, remote adventure shows that he works on, and yet in his spare time, he still likes to get out and head into the outdoors.
Yeah, he's got some absolute cracking stories. I loved it. I loved every minute of talking to him. So I'll let you guys listen to it now. How about that? Sound good, Craig?
Let's do it.
All right, guys, enjoy this. Catch you next time. Bye. Shawn Peach, welcome to the podcast, mate. It's great to have you on.
G'day, Tom, Craig. How are you guys?
We're doing well. It's a bit rainy in our part of the country at the moment, but it's probably a nice change.
Yeah, it's doing the same down here in Sydney at the moment, but you're right. It is a nice change.
Yeah, it is good. Mate, I was thinking today when I was just, I guess, brushing up on my Shawn Peach homework, that there's that old saying I'm sure you're familiar with, that if you're doing something you'll love, you'll never work a day in your life. And when I was scrolling through Instagram, I thought, I wonder, do you feel that you're close to that, or you are at that, or if that's something you're getting closer to?
I think now, as I'm older, I'm definitely thinking more about that, and I know that I'm at as close as it can get when I'm out in the bush. Like, it's that if. No, the editing is kind of part of the gig, and that's just part of the lifestyle that is being a cameraman. But my passion's out there and in the bush and shooting and telling stories. And when I'm out there, I'm definitely not working.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a cinematographer, and then there's a cinematographer like what you do, and obviously the reason we got you on is because it's quite fascinating the type of adventures you're getting dragged around on. At what point did it ever transition from the more kind of boring type of cinematography?
I kind of come into it a really funny way, actually. I really just always had a passion for storytelling. And my dad's uncle, Bill Peach, used to put together a lot of travel documentaries back in the day. He was a host on the ABC, and I kind of fell into that when I was near the ending of school, and I was like, I talked to him a couple of times. That'd be pretty interesting, with no compass of how to get there. I had no idea how to get to doing that. So I just did the film school thing and dropped out of there and thought, I don't really want to learn in the classroom. I'd prefer to go out and do stuff. So I joined up as an extra for TV commercials, TV shows, did a stint on Home and Away, as all good Aussie blokes do.
Oh, wow. For any of our international listeners, you got to Google Home and Away.
Yeah. I won't come up, but Google it.
Still, they'll get an idea of what we're dealing with.
That's good.
So from that, what I did is they'd give you a brief for the day and say, bring winter clothing, we're shooting with winter style for this commercial. And I used to bring the opposite clothing. So things like summer. So they couldn't use me. They'd still pay me. I still get the catering, but I used to have these personal cards and would go and kind of just niggle with the crew, because the crews are so big, there'd be a lot of them standing around.
Yep.
And say, hey, I'm getting into the industry. I'm new. I work for free. Here's my card. Just bring me along. And that was the start of the relationships that I started to build, which then landed me in my first job on a TV show, which, again, I wasn't behind the camera. I was actually I was acting.
Wow.
It's a show called Crime Investigations Australia. And I went from home and away to being murdered into a bathtub. So,
I saw that picture and I laughed because you can't give a graphic warning on Instagram.
it definitely needed the graphic warning, yeah.
Oh, I saw that too. That's like a... Yeah, right. You pretend...
He's not actually dead, Craig. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Miraculous recovery.
Yeah.
That's cool. So how long ago was that, Shawn? Like are we going back 10 years or is it?
Yeah, that must be 12 years ago or so now.
Okay.
And from that led into, like I said, the relationships, which is what the biggest thing is in this industry. It's that network of people that, you know, surround yourself with the next work opportunities. And then I just fell into the corporate space and I was doing a lot of corporate gigs, working for production companies. A really good friend of mine started coming up with a sports documentary show, which we started to get involved with, which is still running and is quite successful. And then I joined the army and I, had a decision to make after that. It was like, do I go full-time career there or do I go back into the camera stuff? And a job at Forward Drive Action just turned up.
Yeah, right.
Nice.
Yep.
Oh, that's it.
The rest is history.
Yeah, well, for the listeners around the world who don't know what Forward Drive Action is, how would we describe it? Well, first of all, it's an immensely popular magazine, which just everything forward drive, from the camping to the technical to the mods and everything. And then I guess the show, you could say it kind of follows a similar format. But what's really cool about the show is when they're usually on some kind of an adventure. They're trying to get from A to B, and then they film everything in between. And it's some pretty good stuff in there. It's certainly well shot, mate.
Yeah, well, it was really funny. Like when they offered the job, it was actually a cameraman for a publishing company, and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she's like, "Oh, you should try that." And I was like, "I don't want to work for a publishing company. Like, I want to make stories and documentaries."
Yeah.
And, she's like, "Just watch the link that they have." And I watched it, and it was really cinematic, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'll go in for it. I'll go in for an interview, And then 2 weeks later, I was on a trip for 2 weeks in Esperance. And, and off we went.
How long ago was that? Like, how long have you been?
That would be maybe 10 or so years. So that was when it was the DVD that went with the mag.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah. Yeah, I've got heaps still in the drawer somewhere.
Yeah, we all do.
Yep. I've got all the DVDs here. Yeah.
Are you, were you, I mean, as a child, as a teen or whatever, were you naturally inclined to be outdoors, or did you come into that more through this role?
No, I was always outdoors. I was that kid. You got home, you dropped your school bag out the door or somewhere in the driveway, and you came back when the street lights turned on.
Yes.
I was lucky with some of the places we lived at. We had like a bush next door, so you're making cubby houses. You were lighting fires that you shouldn't be. The weekend, you were trying to go rock climbing and catch lizards, and that's what I did as a kid, as well as playing competitively for sport. I was very sporty,
right. So
when I could get outdoors, I absolutely could find time for that whenever I had that time outside of basketball.
Yeah. Oh, basketball. That's interesting. I've always, whenever any Australian says they're competitively playing sport, I always think of the football codes. But that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I was born in Melbourne, and we got out of Melbourne quickly though. And but I think if I had stayed there, I probably would have played, AFL. But yeah, fell into basketball and loved that, and played right up until kind of Forward Drive Action, and then really couldn't commit to that, the time that needed training and the rest of it. So
yeah, understandably. Because how long would and I'm not just talking about that particular show, but how long would an assignment take you away potentially?
So Action was quite structured in terms of we knew what we had to get out of each trip, and we, it was 2 episodes would come out of a 2-week trip, 3 would come out of a 3-week trip. Wow. And we'd probably do a few 3-week trips because we're always shooting 3 months in advance.
Oh,
so
wow.
for when the mag would come out, it was time to come back and put that together, because the same team that went out to shoot would come back and put it all together.
Right.
And we were just rotating crew, so we had enough cameramen and editors that you could just keep rolling and, you weren't burning anybody out.
Mm-hmm.
But more recently, some trips I've been on, we've been on the road. There was one when I was with Pat Callanan's 4x4 Adventures, which was on Channel 10. We were almost on the road for about 4.5, 5 months.
Whoa, that's
And I came
serious.
home once. No, I lied. I came home twice, but once I was only home for maybe 2 hours to change from desert cold clothing to shorts and T-shirts for the Cape.
Oh, wow. Just
Wow.
long enough to reintroduce yourself to your girlfriend or
Yeah,
wife.
yeah. Wife at that stage.
Wife at that stage. Who's thinking, what have I done?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you must
That's
have to
incredible.
pinch yourself when you get in your own bed after a trip like that, surely. I mean, it must be, just a crazy time out there.
That was. We were shooting the entire season. We were over in the West Coast and then went across the top end and then finished up in the Cape. So the trips like that, it just didn't make sense to keep going back and coming home, going back
Yeah,
and coming
fair
home.
enough.
You kind of had to really immerse yourself in that and just get it done.
What sort of distances are we talking across that top end of Australia?
Put me on the spot there. Like hours of driving.
Yeah.
Days of driving.
Yeah. It'd be
the first
thousands, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's thousands of Ks. Even I think we took almost 3 weeks to go from Perth to Broome, and without googling how far that is, it's not that far, but it's quite the hike.
Yeah.
Especially when you're filming, everything's a little bit slower.
Oh, absolutely.
For
and it's not just that. It's things like you're not taking the highway. Just for listeners, like the kind of shows you work on are ones where you're taking your four-wheel drive into the wilderness and get into remote places. So we're not talking about doing 1,000 kilometers on the highway. We're talking about bad, sometimes really bad roads where, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Shawn, but these are the sorts of places where you would encounter things like, a fallen tree or something, and the crew would get out with chainsaws and have to move it themselves to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and some of those trips were, there was one probably near the end of my time with Four Drive Action, which we basically carved our own track.
Wow.
We were tasked with the station owner to do a track from the station out to the coast. And one day we moved 700 meters in about 16 hours of filming.
Wow.
Wow.
And lots of punctures.
Wow. Because you were sometimes, what do they call that when you the smaller kind of saplings either burn off and they leave that spike? There's some name for it that I can't remember. But is that the sort of thing?
Yeah, that plus because that land constantly burns up there by itself.
Yeah.
But the other part was the first car would knock something over, a little tree or something, and then that would just leave a nice little spiky bit behind.
Gee.
Sounds like a bulldozer would have been a better option in that
Yeah, but it
terrain.
wouldn't have been a good a story though.
Would it? You must have put some leverage on the old tyre sponsors in that trip.
Yeah, I mean, they actually came through at the end. They I think they shipped in something like 28 tyres to the
Oh, my
local town
goodness.
for us at the end.
Holy heck, that's incredible.
Yeah, I think we had a 5-car convoy.
Yeah.
We had to leave one crew car behind because we had to use its tyres, and we
Oh, wow.
couldn't afford to keep losing at the rate we were.
Yeah.
And we didn't actually get the track all the way to the end, but we did manage to get it to quite a wide-bodied river system,
Right.
which had not been to the station owner. He'd not, no white man had been there that he knew of. He had no track out there.
Wow.
So we were just, fishing on this fresh river. There was crocs and sharks and fish galore, and it was just us. We were just remote.
Wow.
Yeah, such a special adventure too. And so if you're out on these big trips, I mean, no special accommodation either. Was it caravans or was it just swags? What were you saying?
That's all swags.
Swags, yeah.
That's all swags. But it's changed over the years. It started very much in swags. Certain shows had certain levels of sponsorship and partners. So that was camper trailers, caravans. the hosts were always sleeping in those. But if we were, we transported the camper trailers across the top end of Australia, and they were easier to set up at night. Just kind of pull over on the side of the road, throw them up, sleep for a few hours, and jump back in the car.
Yeah, right.
But majority of everything is in the swag. I mean, I was fresh out of doing a lot of army work, so my first trip, I just slept on the ground in a bivvy bag, and people looking at me going, "What are you doing?" There's a Taj Mahal of a swag here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can have that. Oh, no, I'm good on the ground.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, the last, well, not the last vehicle, the vehicle that I currently drive, when I bought it, it had a rooftop tent, and I didn't open it for 6 months. I was actually leaving it on there because I had nowhere to store it, and I was planning to either give it away or sell it. And then I used it on a trip. Long story short, I went to a cabin, and there was a few people there staying in the cabin, and I said, you know what, I might just stay by myself. And I never looked back. Like, that thing is the most luxurious sleep I've ever had in the wilderness.
Yeah, I did that 5-month trip. I opted for a rooftop for that trip.
Oh, yeah.
Because of where we were going with the high humidity and the heat, it was a much better option for airflow.
Yep.
But the rate at which we move, we never stay in one camp longer than a night. We're usually rolling into camp late afternoon, or nighttime, and we're leaving at the crack of dawn. It was it was a pain. The sleeps were great, for the few hours that I got, but it was one of the traditional kind of folding ones out with all the canvas. They've come a long way now with those clamshell A-frame style, and I'm actually looking to get back in them now that I can spend a bit more time, traveling on less of a deadline. Yeah,
I got one I can get it sort of sleepable in around about just over 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's nothing special, but geez, that's not bad at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But anything more than that is a bit tiresome.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially when you were pulling up to camp, we're shooting, or we're starting the offload, because we would offload everything every single night. And clone everything before we go to bed.
Yeah.
So that's hours.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah. So you're talking specifically there, to anyone who doesn't know, you're talking about the backing up the footage, right, and the audio tracks and everything else that you got.
And how would you get all the power that you need, and how would you charge things out there?
So we would have crew cars, and they were set up, for the camera teams with multiple battery systems in the rear, and inverters and solar to help everything during the day. But it still became quite tiresome overnight, where the cars would really take a beating in terms of the electrics, because especially when drones started coming into play. There's a lot of draw, and we just you'd wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and your car's beeping at you because you're running your battery flat. And
oh wow!
But we wouldn't have been able to survive without them. We absolutely needed them. A generator didn't make sense. Just even for space, it didn't make sense to bring that. We had to be completely self-sufficient with the electronics in the cars.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. And how many cameramen were with you for each of or some of these bigger trips?
Most of them have always been two, and then a stills guy.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the bigger trips at Four Drive Action were there would be like a shooter producer. So you'd have the two main cameras, and then you'd have the producer who would also shoot.
Right.
And then the stills guy. There was always a stills guy there, being a magazine as well. They had to make sure that those travel stories were also captured on that side. That has changed a little bit, where shows that don't have mags and they've not relied on those travel stories as much. But there's still a need there, because you got to. There's all social media and stuff now, Instagram, and it's all still very visual. So
absolutely. I think there's a big misconception for anybody who doesn't understand film versus stills, is that it's not. I mean, I have seen videographers switch between the two, but it's not ideal whatsoever, and certainly not ideal for a troop of 5 vehicles that's moving along and trying to get to a destination. For a videographer to be, taking their mind off capturing the moments to do stills, it just doesn't make sense. And I mean, to be honest, I guess you'd say that everything's happening all at once. So you're not going to be able to film something crazy. If you don't have a cameraman there, you're not going to capture that craziness on a photograph either.
Exactly. And, we never had the luxury of doing things twice. It was, you get one shot at it and you make sure everything's rolling. That's why we run so many cameras. You run the in-car cameras so we can get the reactions inside the cars. You've got potentially a drone going up. You've got 2 cameras going on. There might be a self-sufficient slider that's been set up somewhere. There could be external GoPros as well that are also running. There's no time there to jump on and just swing to get it still.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and even that for like just continuity going forward, if you've crossed over a river and now you've made fresh tracks on the other side, it's almost impossible to hide them for the second time round.
Absolutely. And whenever they do, that's exactly right. And you catch some shows out sometimes when they do stuff like that, and it just kind of, the entire story just kind of crumbles. You feel kind of cheated as a viewer.
Yeah. You must have a lot of pressure on you, Shawn, because you could imagine that, you can't turn around and do that move again, and you've got a lot of pressure to make sure you don't stuff up that shot, right? Did you feel that pressure, or you can sort of take it in your stride these days?
Very early on, I did. It was a style of shooting like that obdoc kind of fly on the wall stuff. Wasn't what I was doing. I was used to having a presenter down the line and time to set up the composition and focus. And but if you're in the boat fishing and all of a sudden, there's a croc, you've got to turn around and get it.
Yep.
Sure. Or if something goes wrong with the car, your wheel lifts and it looks like they're going to potentially roll, you're not stopping everyone and going, hang on, I need a wide of this as well. It's, you just keep going. And that's the beauty of having all the cameras, so we can tell the story from different coverage points, and allows the camera guys also to move around, to reframe, to make it feel like we're covering every single angle. But there's a lot of communication, between those 2 camera guys that is kind of helps ease that pressure, especially when we're turning up to a scene like say a big hill climb or something, or a river crossing. We will discuss what we need to achieve out of this scene. So someone's always going to run a wide, which is our safety, and you're not really moving too much. You're just kind of making sure you've always
worst case
got
scenario
going on.
You've got the action. From a
and
distance.
The tight guy is picking out that detail and picking out those moments. So that does help spread the pressure, I guess.
Yeah, because I was thinking earlier, you must build a pretty good rapport with the other cameramen.
Yeah, you have to. Your crews have to be. When you're on the road that long and living in each other's pockets,
Now, I think the other thing, I guess we haven't really touched on, is that there's, you speak a lot about, capturing the shot, and there's this to watch out for and everything. But when you start talking about things like crocs and driving vehicles over, well, let's put it this way, pretty ridiculous terrain at times, there's some physical danger there. Have you ever? Is there anything where you've ever thought, wow, I was way too close for comfort to danger at that point?
Almost every single day.
Almost every day.
It constantly, the near misses or the stupid positions that we've been in. I shouldn't have all the limbs I have. I probably shouldn't be here, especially up in Cape York. And for those that don't know, that's right up in the kind of top eastern part of Australia, and that's where some of our biggest crocodiles are.
Sure.
And we would, I'll give you an example. There was one we had to get out to the coast, and the water crossing that we were faced with in front of us was about 500-600 meters long.
Yep. And
it was all black water, and the track went into it and then kind of disappeared. And we kind of, grabbed a long stick and poked around, and it was quite a hard bottom, but in those kind of scenarios, you really don't want to go driving in there unless you've kind of walked it, and felt the bottom.
Because sometimes that top layer, for anyone who hasn't driven in water or mud, sometimes that top layer forms almost a bit of a false crust, and then once the weight of the vehicle crushes through that, especially the second vehicle can often cop it, can't they?
Yep, yep. So, and then the worst thing you want to do is be stuck in there trying to get a recovery going and trying to get someone out. Because, I mean, it was black water for as far as you could see left and as far as you could see right.
Oh.
And so we jumped out and the presenters thought, hey, it's a great idea. We'll just walk it. So they went together. They took a knife. I spotted a small croc slide at the entrance with a smacked up turtle. And I had no choice for the audio. I had to go with them. And I was standing waist deep by myself. The photographer wasn't having a bar of it. He stayed in the car, so no one was watching me. And they were off, maybe 200 meters in front of me. And we were survived. But I know, again, we shouldn't have done those things. But you do get a little bit complacent because you roll through with so much noise in terms of how many cars we have. Mm-hmm. Crocs don't live and exist, for as long as they do by just kind of making themselves known. They stay very hidden and they're opportunistic.
Yep.
So, we've just been lucky, I guess, really lucky.
Yeah, but it must be sometimes like a lot of adventure shows where, the crew are, you're filming someone doing the adventure and yet the cameraman in like the Bear Grylls show, or if you're doing the free solo or whatever, the cameraman's hanging on for dear life, they're really taking a lot of fear, a lot of hit there,
Yeah, we're always in a precarious position. But you kind of look at the scene and you think, well, how can we best tell this story and also immerse that viewer into the fear that the presenters are feeling, and the only way to do that is to be in there. You can't shoot on a bank from a long lens. It doesn't. Yeah. It just doesn't. It doesn't give you that. You need to be in there. You need to be able to pan away from them into the black water with something moving, and you're going, we have no idea what that is. Let's hope it doesn't chew us.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's not a heck of a lot you could do either.
No. Once it happens, it happens. You just got to make sure you keep rolling so they can use it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you own have you got a Land Cruiser now?
Yeah, I've got a 200 series now, yeah.
Yeah, and were you a four-wheel drive enthusiast prior to getting involved in all of the mayhem?
No, I wasn't really. We'd camped as a family, but it was never about the four-wheel drive. And we never went to places that you needed a four-wheel drive. It was just campgrounds. We just had it purely more for space and, moving everybody around. But I think I fell in love with it very quickly once because we had the crew cars, you were thrown into having to drive anyway. Right. You have to drive your own car. Right. And, we did the four-wheel drive training, we did towing training, we did all of that. And it's very hard not to fall in love with it.
Yeah.
But I've kind of flipped the switch on that now where I love my four-wheel drive, but it's not my golden goose. It's the tool to get me to what I love doing, which is the adventure and being out there in the wilderness and the bush. And, it's just another piece of equipment really now.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, just to be brutally honest, we had a phone conversation last week, and we discussed that, and I remember saying that I kind of feel the same. It's my four-wheel drive's the thing that gets me 90% of the way into the kind of crazy environment, and then in our case, I take it on foot from there. But yeah, it really is like another. You've got your camera, and then you've got your four-wheel drive to get there.
Yeah, and I'm really enjoying the leaving the car a lot now, and going on foot, and doing a couple of nights away from the car, and not having to rely on that as the base station. We've always camped around the cars for work. It's always been about the cars. It's nice to just disappear from all of that. So if I can drive in as far as I need to, and then get on foot, and and to that end, I've changed my preferable sleeping system. Now I'm in a hammock. I much prefer to be in a hammock.
I noticed you
over a swag.
I noticed you switched, mate. That's we're pretty heavy hammock advocates. I figured we'd get on the topic at some point. Is it something that was used in the military, or is it always a ground-based bivvy?
I never used hammocks in the military. There are definitely use cases for it. So where I fell in love with them and actually got exposed to them, I was in Indonesia, and we were doing a documentary on a World War II mission that happened, and we were just filming the 75th anniversary.
Was that the reenactment?
The reenactment,
Yep,
yeah. So
yep.
Operation Jaywick is a bunch of crazy Australian Special Forces guys that basically rode through Indonesia and its islands with the Japanese warships and military within the waters, and they'd sleep on islands during the day or hide, and then paddle at night. And they ended up putting a bunch of mines on the warships in Singapore Harbour and blew up a bunch of the fleet, and then escaped. It's Operation Jaywick. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Crazy.
So we did on the 75th anniversary, basically to the hour, a reenactment paddle, and we're staying on the same islands. And the guy that was leading it is a good friend of mine. He's a ex SAS operator.
Is that Mick?
Mick, that's Mick.
Yeah, I've met Mick.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I've had lunch with him.
Wow, awesome.
He's a good bloke.
He is an absolute legend, and so yeah, he took us along on that, and I was capturing it all, and he provided us all with hammocks. Again, I slept on the ground for most of that, but there was just that one night, the night of the raid, we were sleeping on one of these islands in Indonesia overlooking Singapore Harbour, where the boys would have been, 75 years ago, ready to paddle across, which is now one of the craziest shipping lanes in the world. So we didn't actually paddle across, and just laying in a hammock and going, yeah, this is me. I can do a hammock.
Yeah. Yeah, the some of the terrain we take them on, like we'll make a decision, before we leave as to where we're going, and then we'll get a rough idea of that. But we do a lot of off-trail stuff, so if we know we're going into sort of rainforest and stuff like that, I really don't know how you'd get asleep if you didn't have a hammock. Like the flexibility that it gives you to keep away from scorpions and centipedes and whatever else is cruising around, especially when you're talking about going to other countries like that.
Yeah. I mean, we we were dealing with a lot of fatigue, so it didn't really matter at that stage, sleeping on the ground where you could on beaches. The water, misjudging the tide line and having that lap at your feet all night,
There's a good one of your Instagram stories has got that in it.
Yes.
It's quite good. It gets within I don't know, was it like a metre or 75 centimetres of your toes?
Yeah. I had to move back up, and where we were moving back up to was quite a dense bushland, which was full of rats.
Oh.
So you didn't really have much room to move, and I thought, well, I'm up, I can't sleep, might as well film it. and Mick, with all the experience, everyone rushed for a bit of the beach.
Yeah.
And Mick, set up later as the sun had already set, and he set out. There's two trees that were not in the water when the tide was down, but when the water came up, he was probably like 20, 30 meters into the water. It's still above the waterline. And
rats couldn't even climb up the tree.
No rats, no mozzies, and just the sound of the ocean underneath him. He had a great sleep.
I bet he did. With a big grin on his face too.
Yeah. Well, I think he's just more happy that he watches blokes just rush to find the best bit of beach, and and that's usually all the bad spots. But when you spend a life of doing that, where the good spots are.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that you spoke earlier of wanting to leave the car and have that almost more quiet experience leads me to again another conversation we had last week briefly, but also the video that you recommended on YouTube, the Bertram,
Yep.
Not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but
Same.
I will put the link in the show notes for everyone to watch, because it's something I've been getting into lately. So I did watch. I ended up getting sucked down the rabbit hole. Shawn, thanks very much, and lost a few days of my life, but it was all worth it. And one of the things I noticed also on your Instagram, which goes hand in hand with that, was the cooksa that you made. So I guess it's called different things around different parts of Europe, but the wooden cup that you carved What was the inspiration from that? Was it something like Bertram's channel?
It was him. It was actually him. Yeah,
that's incredible.
I'd found that channel when I think he had less than 100 subscribers, and this is maybe 3-4 years ago, and now he's at 1 million subscribers. And that one video that I watched that had like 1,000 views has 22 million views.
Oh my goodness!
And it's worth going to watch. I mean, it's a 15-18 minute video, and the guy doesn't speak in it at all, and there's no music. You just hear the sound of nature, and his bushcrafting skills was what kind of drew me to it.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine, excuse me, Scott Mason, we'd been kind of going down that rabbit hole, and that rabbit hole for you actually goes deeper, by the way. And we said, let's make our own. It's tradition. It's not, you don't buy these. Traditionally you make them and hand them down. So we said, let's do it. And I mean, Australia's full of hard wood, and it's not as easy as they make it look, in overseas and in Canada and stuff. But we managed to find some wood.
Yeah. Do you remember what kind of wood you used?
I don't, mate. I went down to a woodworking place and I told him what I wanted to do. And he happened to have a bunch of blocks of offcuts and just said, look, this is probably going to be the easiest to get through.
Yep.
But it wasn't easy. We started with, a little axe and
I saw that.
Get the shape.
Started with a little hatchet. Yeah.
But I just had a discussion about that probably an hour ago, and I can't find it. So it's time to make a new one.
Wow. Yeah, right. And if you've got 3 children, right?
Yep.
Same as coincidentally, both Craig and I have 3 kids each. So it's things like that. When you start talking about handing stuff down to your kids, you're going to have to make 4 because you got to make one for each of them, and then you still need one yourself. And we're in the same boat. I feel your pain, mate.
And they need utensils as well,
Oh, yeah, so you got to do the fork and the spork or the spoon. Yeah, that's exactly right. I've got a little sort of tomahawk axe for each one of my sons, where I've kind of collected the heads, secondhand through various sources, and I've got them there, and some of them need handles, and some of them just need to be rehandled. But yeah, so again, I'm sort of keeping them for when the 2 eldest ones are slightly older, and then I'll recondition those and give them out. But yeah, so I've got to do it 3 times, and then obviously for myself.
Yeah, but there's something, I don't know, for me, I mean, I did most of it at home because I was working, so we weren't really going away, and I was going to the office every single day. But I think this next one, I'm going to spend the time and actually do it out in the bush, and there's something really, you use the word quiet, and that's kind of exactly what I'm looking for now when I go to the bush, and even to the point where, I like to do solo trips now, not take any cameras, don't document it, and have it for me, because I've always had it for everyone else.
Yeah.
And it's nice to now have the ability to go and just to have those moments and experiences for myself.
I think there's merit in that. I think that it's something that a long time ago we all would have done. And I'm not even talking about, sort of a coming of age thing. I'm just talking about it's something that we all would have done to regather our thoughts and reset and have that time, sit around a fire, watch the bush TV as we were joking about today on Instagram. So I think it's a lost custom, and Craig and I have both done our own solo trips. I've done a canoe trip and a couple of hiking ones, and there's I don't know, you just come back slightly different and in a good way. Yeah, you certainly agree. Appreciate a lot of things when you get back too.
Yeah, so what sort of solo trips do you do, mate? Is just a couple of days on your own? You've managed to do a couple of those?
Yeah, so when I was, I've just come back from finishing up contract in Queensland, and Mick happens to have a friend up there who's got a property up there, which is affords you the ability to have some nice camping on cliff faces. You can go for some pretty serious stomps.
Great.
Like some really smash your legs all the way up and smash them all the way down, kind of bear crawling up steep kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's got rivers as well. So it was really, it wasn't delving too far. It was just a matter of being, you know, out there by myself and just, you know, having a bunch of different activities that I could pick and choose if I wanted to. If I wanted to sit around the fire all day and carve wood and try different fire making things, and I could do that. Or if I wanted to go for a walk, you know, you could do that. It was just the ability of not having a schedule to stick to, you know. And I think now I want to, you know, I'm starting to get back down that rabbit hole of watching a lot of bushcraft stuff online, and I'd love to do stuff where you've got to get there by water in like a canoe, or, you know, we did another trip with Mick where we went over to Fraser Island and just paddled over. We were just going to stay the night just on the beach, but we ended up getting absolutely demolished by sandflies. So 2 o'clock in the morning with the full moon and the waves, you know, going pretty wild, we paddled back. But
wow,
it's
by
just
kayak. What sort of distance is that?
It's not that far because we were coming across from the but it's probably a 3 hour.
Oh my God! But it's brutal. Like, it's a place where, I mean, in the wrong weather, you could get kind of swallowed up in there.
And we literally went on the worst weather event you could get. We were going to call it, but we said nah. And you know, like, we had the skirts on. It was two man kayaks, and one was bailing, the other one was paddling.
Oh wow!
It was, and then when we got to where we were on the beach, because what we were doing is actually going over to see the commando training school, which was a secret commando training facility
on Fraser Island.
Yeah.
So
we're going to go and see that, there's not much left, unfortunately, but you know, the area is still significant.
Yep.
And we got there, and there was probably about 100 meters of just muddy mangrovey stuff that sucked you down to your knees, and we were just sliding
to get through that, to get to
camp, to get to the beach.
Oh my God.
So we're just sliding on our bellies, being as wide as we could, pulling these kayaks, falling over, losing shoes.
No.
And sat down and got into the rat packs, and we're eating our rations, and, you know, a couple of friendly dingoes turned up, tried to fight us for our ration packs. And yeah, it's just
a day in the life of.
Just a day in the life, really. Like, but you come back from that, and don't get me wrong, it's all hard work at that point, but you get back and you go, that was epic.
Yeah.
You know, that was awesome. You know, I'd do it again, because it's weird. You kind of forget about the pain that you went through.
Yeah, you do. It's funny. We've got all these stories where it's funny, and that was such a great trip and all this, and sometimes you have to stop and go, hang on a second. 90% of that I was on the verge of tears. Who am I kidding? To get those couple of laughs, I had to cry a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
But they do turn into some of the best memories, though. I think
they become stories, right?
Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Yeah. And some of our favourite stories are, you know, on the hammocks on the edge of a cliff when thunderstorms roll in, and not being in a position to safely move, so we had to sit it out and so on. And later on, like, we still kind of laugh about that.
Yeah,
that one. And I think it makes you a little bit stronger. Is probably a pretty cliched word, but I'm going to use it anyway because I can't think of anything else at this time of night. But I think you do come back a little bit more resilient. That's a better word, isn't it?
Experience.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go.
Something that stood out to me from I think it was probably one of you. Yeah, it was an Instagram story. Was for someone who's travelled Australia so widely, and I'd argue probably more extensively than easily 99.9% of everyone else. What stood out to me was when you were so taken back by your time in the Simpson Desert. It was just to hear that from someone. Like I said, you've been everywhere, every type of terrain in Australia, from snow to beaches, and then you were so kind of blown away by the desert. Like, what was it that did that?
It was kind of a multi-stage process. The first time I was introduced to the desert, we were at filming a travel story on the way to what's called the Big Red Bash, which is a big country music festival that's held out just on the edge of the Simpson Desert, just past Birdsville.
Okay.
And they get about 10,000 people out there, and some of the biggest, country rock acts from Australia get out there and play.
And you were covering that from a film perspective. You were working.
We were covering the convoy drive-in. So we had 30 cars in the convoy, so owners of Amaroks, and we're covering that travel story with the destination being the Big Red Bash. And that year, actually, the Simpson Desert was flooding, and it kind of flooded out the desert. So they had to hold it in town, and I kind of felt a bit robbed. I was like, the desert's just there, Birdsville's great, but the desert's there, and we had no time to keep going. We had to go back after that. So we went back again the next year and got to what's called Big Red, which is the big main sand dune that's right on the edge on the eastern side of the Simpson Desert, and that's the backdrop. And from there, I was just like, I want to explore the other 1,100 dunes that are in front of me on the way to the west coast. And the next year, I just managed to go out with a crew that were crossing, and we just jagged the weather like it was. We were on a new moon, so it was completely dark at night. I always like to set up camp kind of a bit further away from everyone else, have my own quiet little space.
Yeah.
And, I had no light pollution out there, and you could see the Milky Way hit the horizon at night just with your eyes. And I made a conscious decision. I was like, I'm not going to shoot a time lapse. I'm not going to shoot any kind of astro stuff. I'm just going to sit here in the swag. And was just wowed by it. Then you wake up in the morning and there's a dingo running along and the sun's coming up at the horizon. It's just, there's just something about the desert and the remoteness that, if you can manage to find your little quiet space to yourself, I'm trying to say there's nothing, but there's also a lot.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yep.
It's vast, but if you take the time to look around and look down and look up and look around, there's so much going on. And I went back again the next year, 9 months later, and did it again and jagged the weather again and new moon. And this year it was actually flooded again. So I got to stand in places where the water would be now over my head and over the four-wheel drives. And so we had to do it a different way this time. We were one of the first crews to cross the Simpson Desert for that year.
Yeah. And what sort of, sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but how often is it raining? How often is it flooding out there? It's not a yearly event, is it?
No, it's decades between.
Yeah, that's
usually.
What I thought.
The small flood for the first time was only very minimal, but the second flood, which was only a couple of years ago, was huge. And it's a dry flood. It didn't rain in Birdsville or the desert. It all comes down from the Channel Country up north.
Oh, yes, of course.
And it kind of just hits them like a ton of bricks.
Yeah, I was doing a bit of research on Lake Esk. Is it that the massive lake down in South Australia? It's Esk.
No.
Is it?
Lake Eyre?
Eyre,
Yeah.
sorry. Yes, thanks for the correction. Lake Eyre, I was doing a bit of research on that, and when I was looking at the what it takes for that to be, massive is all of that same water coming down through that basin. It's absolutely fascinating the distances that water travels.
Yeah, and there's so much
mind-blowing.
of it. And I mean, if our cars stand at 2 meters, if our cars stand at about 2 meters, 2.2, they were underwater and some. There's a lot of water. And luckily there's an access track around the back which you can get off the main route, because it's only one track really across and back.
Right.
But there is one main track that you can get around, but even that, we were the water was up to our bonnet when we were crossing.
Oh, wow.
With running water.
Wow, that's solid.
But 9 months before that, it was completely empty, and we had lunch and a small campfire in that same river crossing.
Wow.
And I think that's what it is about. That's
It's just ever changing.
You talk about exactly, and you talk about what you can actually control and what impact you can actually have on the landscape, and it's you get out there and you kind of see where you fit in the whole scheme of things, and it just goes on by itself anyway. Regardless. Obviously, concentration of certain things can destroy areas, but that area doesn't get that concentration of foot traffic. 50 meters either side of the track is about it.
Yeah.
But it's breathtaking. Everywhere you look, the only bad shot you can get out there is the one you don't turn your camera on and shoot.
Or a selfie.
Yep. Yeah. When you put your head in the way, exactly.
It's no surprise then that the indigenous culture sort of just has so much love for that area.
Oh, absolutely, mate. And to get out there and actually, we did a trip through the Kimberley, and we went with the traditional owners through there, and to hear what they what they do on the land, and we were doing smoking ceremonies and go to places where it was super special for them, and just seeing the way that they react. Sometimes just to sit back and just watch how they react in their environment. Is, again, it's another breathtaking moment. It's a humbling moment. You sit there and go, wow, there's something special going on between them and the land. And, if I could just have a piece of that, or if I could communicate that somehow onto the screen and let people at home understand that, then I'm doing my part here.
Again, that's not just the location. That's an amazing experience, but you've had that privilege as well of doing things that the average person doesn't have within their grasp. But that's fascinating, mate. I love it.
Yeah, and it feels daunting. I speak to a lot of people about that. It feels daunting to, leaving the city. But the best advice is just do 1,000 Ks, do a few hours, see how that goes. Next time, go a little further. And you'll start to realize, what you need to be able to survive and sustain yourself out there. And it's not that big and scary, Not all the animals. Yes, we have everything here wants to eat you and kill you and poison you, but 9 times out of 10, and I'm a testament to that. They don't come anywhere near you, And maybe I just taste bad, but these. I
don't know. You can look a bit intimidating too, and that might work in your favour.
Yeah, good to know.
In some of your older pictures, you look hairier than most of the wildlife I've ever seen.
Yes, around. Mate, that was quite a mission to get that beard going, and sometimes I do regret getting rid of it. I know my barber was pretty shocked; he wasn't happy.
Yeah,
it was kind of his trophy beard as well. I think he was more in love with it when I was, but he didn't have to wash it.
No, exactly right. I'm an ex bearded person, and it's a lot of work. Actually, one of the things I kind of got sick of was being known for it. Tom, the guy with the beard. Yeah, yep. That's him. And I was like, hang on a second, I'm more than that, you bastards.
There's more to me. I'll shave it off. I'll show you.
Yeah, what are you going to call me without it? Oh, Tom, that idiot bloke. Yeah,
baby face.
Yeah, that clown, the beardless guy.
Yeah, the guy that used to be cool who had a beard.
Yeah. The ex-hipster.
Yeah.
That conversation about being out in the desert kind of brings me to another question that I was toying with, and that is, given that you spent so much time, around Australia and around the globe, where was it that you felt most isolated from civilization?
Ooh, that's a good one. Isolation comes in many forms for me.
Absolutely. And feel free to kind of, answer that in your own way, of course.
There's the physical isolation of, just being remote and obviously having no service and always with somebody, a crew, but as a crew we'd be isolated. But then there was also a kind of a weird isolation feeling that I had. I went with Mick, we went to Iraq and did a few days through Baghdad and then up to Kurdistan. And do
you mind if I ask what the purpose of that was? Or?
We were going to do it was like a TV pilot.
Okay.
We were looking at a show much like kind of what Ross Kemp does, where he does that extreme world and embeds himself with
yes,
different militaries or different Somali pirates or
like,
something.
One I saw was in I think it was a South American prison.
Yeah, crazy stuff like that.
Amazing.
So what we were toying with was an idea around bringing civilians into these.
Wow.
These
Out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, out of their comfort zone. And this could, the first iteration of the pilot was to bring, big CEOs and, people that had that felt in their space, in their own comfort zone, they were the big dog. Put them out of that comfort zone, put them into a war zone, take them in with a bunch of ex-operators and with a kind of two parallel stories, you kind of get to explore the country and obviously tell the war side of it. But the war thing wasn't really important. It was more about that these countries have so much history. We were in Babylon. We were walking around Babylon and Saddam's palace up on the hill, and all I wanted to do was fly my drone, and people are saying, no, you can't. It's going to get shot down. You get arrested. And Iraqi prisons are not great.
No, not that good.
But I managed to get the drone up anyway, and I've got this great shot of the sun setting of, Saddam's palace up on the hill and Babylon kind of below it. And so we were there filming that kind of pilot with a bunch of civilians and some ex-military guys. And just being enthralled in it. But what that did for us, the isolation side, is what I was getting at, is we went only a couple of days after quite a serious incident happened in New Zealand where that gunman opened up on a bunch of Muslims.
Yes.
And it was not safe for Australians and stuff to be over there.
Oh, wow.
And we decided to go in anyway, but what that meant is we had to pull back all the communications. We couldn't call loved ones. We couldn't talk to anybody. You couldn't text, because it's full of spies.
Right.
And everything's tapped and, log into this quick free Wi-Fi, we're not going to steal your data.
Yeah.
So that was a weird isolation because I've always been able to at least call home either on a satellite phone or, but, having kids at home and even dealing with the battle of like, okay, I'm going to a war zone now, which is very much still active because it's only a couple of years ago. And not being able to keep people, informed what was going on was kind of very confronting and isolating in that sense as well.
And that's not the good kind of isolation either.
No.
Yeah, harsh reality. No. Yeah.
That's that's pretty full on, mate. I mean, I was thinking earlier that we joked around that your wife has to put up with you disappearing and stuff, but at least is in those other situations you're around, good blokes that have got your back, and the worst thing that's going to happen is a mechanical injury or something like that. But that's a whole different kettle of fish, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it was, and I put her into a lot of challenging positions by doing that. But I just that love of chasing the story and and documenting that story and being able to then give that to an audience that might not be able to ever do that. And I see it a lot now on my own Instagram. People talk about we follow you because you give us that window through to travel that we wouldn't do or we can't do or when we just would never do, but we like to watch. And I think that's really cool because it's nice to know that even outside of the shows, I'm still providing some kind of value to, or some kind of experience and a story to other people. And that's what I think, I want to do this year now is really focus on telling my story and what I'm doing and that journey and learning. And, my bushcraft skills aren't great. My fire making skills and survival skills aren't great, but I'm going to learn and I'll document along the way and, come along for the ride. I'm not going to start a YouTube channel. That's, I'm not interested in that, but, there's a bunch of people that, like to follow what I do. And, I think giving back in that way, if I can, and trying to add to value. If that means that, one or two young guys get out there with their sons or they get out there alone or a couple gets out there and, that's awesome. I think, COVID's been great for that. People have to start traveling Australia now.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I mean,
and everyone's so quick to jump on a plane, right, and go overseas.
Exactly. There's a lot here. There's a lot here they're missing. That's for sure.
There is,
and there's a lot here they're missing within a 2 or 3 hour drive of a capital city. It's not that far away. But like
you can just start with a hike in your CBDs. Brisbane.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got heaps of little hiking spots you can do.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's got tons, and usually it can become contagious.
It does, absolutely.
And then that leads into more. You actually spoke of, making a conscious effort this year to be more transparent in one of your posts. Do you feel like you've perhaps been holding back, I guess, your true feelings, or do you think that you've been maybe posting things that you thought other people wanted to see? I mean, where does that transparency thing come in?
Yeah, I mean, I've made a career of being behind the camera. It's much safer behind there. There's no vulnerabilities, you know. You can edit out all your mistakes. And but I've always had, and that's through my dad's uncle, this kind of urge to storytell. And sometimes I think that, you know, the best way I could do that is through me sharing it. But I've always had also like an imposter syndrome, I guess, that, you know, there's someone on that other side who's listening that, you know, is going to call me out on something, or, you know, I'm not really I'm not a technical cinematographer, you know, I don't go into the details, and but I just know how to get the best out of the tools that I have, and I know how to tell a story. And sometimes I think that, you know, there's no value to give there. So I kind of had a wake up moment with a couple of coaches over the last couple of years, and they just said, you know, forget about what other people think. You know, if you've got something to say, you can say it and go and do it. And someone said to me the other day, if you and they're a public speaker, and they said they get imposter syndrome as well now, and if they ever didn't get imposter syndrome, then they're probably doing the wrong thing at that stage. You know, there should be an element of that to keep you grounded.
I see.
And so I think now, with the ability that I'm not working for any more shows directly anymore, and there was no kind of IP to you know, that had to be hidden or only distributed through the shows, I can now go out there and tell, you know, just what I'm doing. You know, and that could just be an underwater dive shoot, you know, or it could be going back out and doing an asset trip and doing some forward driving. And one thing I've always struggled is with whether or not where the family fits in on my Instagram.
Yeah.
I've gone in and out of showing them, and, you know, I don't want the kids all over it, but sometimes there's, you know, I really just want to, you know, take great photos of them, and I want to post them up there. And I think that will probably evolve a bit more as we start to go out bush and do stuff together as well.
Yeah, I've no doubt that will happen, mate. And I think, you know, as a parent myself, I know what you mean. Like my boys are, you know, big into their bushcraft now and their survival stuff, and they go out in the backyard and try and last, you know, the weekend without coming in for any food or anything.
Yep.
And they're ripping lemons off the lemon tree and all sorts of stuff. But you know, I often think that some of the stuff they do or photos I take of them is fantastic content. But at this point, I've chosen not to. But that's just me. But in having said that, I think it paints a picture of you as a more rounded, you know, I don't know, just a person who has more elements, more, you know. And I think that's if you're looking for that transparency, then, as you say, it might inevitably be including the rest of your family eventually.
Yeah, and like I said, I've here and there I do it, and usually it's not through, you know, photos. It'll just be something through stories, you know, that'll disappear in 24 hours, and
right.
You know, so it's still up there, and those that are playing at home will you know, get to see a bit of that part of my life. Because if you look on my Instagram, it looks like I'm just running around as a single man and, you know, living the dream. But, you know, there's the real world responsibilities back here, and there's the kids back here, and there's a wife back here, and who I, you know, I'm not seeing and spending time with when I'm away for months. So, you know, it's now about switching the way that is for me, and including them now where I can, and taking them out, you know. And that could just be weekends in the backyard in the swag where the kids love it, you know.
Absolutely.
I've got a nice big swag. We can all get in there.
Yep.
It's share the body heat. It's nice and warm at least.
They're cuddle bunnies too, kids.
Yep. And you can throw them anywhere in the swags. You can put one down in the corner over there, one down over there.
Lay them in
and
like
they
sardines.
sleep much better. Yep. They sleep much better than they do in their own beds.
Yeah, my kids, 3 boys slept on the trampoline last weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just put a big mozzie net over it, and yeah, they slept in there. Even through the rain, I had this dodgy tarp, and they managed to huddle in the middle for through the rain.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
And it's really funny what they latch onto. I mean, the kids at the moment are obsessed when we go camping. All they want is couscous or 2-minute noodles, but it has to be made out of the jet boil. Like it has to be.
Yeah.
It can't be out of anything else.
Get your
It
jet
can't
boil
be.
out.
Just get the jet boil out. Let's have it on the back of the truck.
Yep.
And you know, and they've all got their own utensils that they've claimed ownership of. And
Yeah.
And it's a little routine. That's what they have to do.
You just reminded me of something. I'm sorry to cut you off there. You just reminded me that I don't know if you remember this. I promised you a long time ago that I've got to cook you chili con carne on the fire one night.
I have forgotten, but
it was a long time
I will not forget
ago.
now.
No,
and it's now
you should
etched in
not.
here.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time in the backyard, and I cook a lot on the fire, just because I don't know. It's just so easy, and I've got some good camping ovens, and I kind of got the I know what I'm doing roughly out there, and we just get out there, and we'll sort of spend from 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon through till about 8 o'clock at night, and we'll only sort of duck in to grab a bit more food or something, but it just makes for a whole experience. As you say, you can literally have that experience in your backyard, and it's a great place to start.
And the kids love that chili con carne, man. They do. It's great. It tastes awesome.
Yeah.
There you go. There's a 5-star review.
Yeah. There's a a couple of times a year, I have a big backyard bonanza, and I invite some very close mates. And whenever I tell them what I'm cooking, I usually don't include the chili con carne. I tell them the other stuff, like I'm doing a quarter of a lamb in the smoker or whatever, and chicken wings, but I always get the question from a couple, but you're still doing the chili con carne. Yeah, I'm still doing that. Oh, okay, cool.
Because we can come now. My RSVP is yes now.
Yes, that's right. I just want to double check on that.
Because I think we're busy if you're not.
Yeah, we're pretty busy.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, you'd think I'd be a better cook, the amount of cooking segments that I filmed. But the only thing I remember from those cooking segments is that you just have to add beer.
Yeah.
And I can do that bit. It's
Hang on, do you add beer to the food or to yourself?
Always, both.
Both.
Bit for the beer, bit for you, bit for the food.
And everything tastes better.
Yeah. So I'm trying to explore now with all that camping, and it's that time now. I don't have a deadline. It's time. Time's my own out there, and we have. But again, there's still another challenge, is because when I want to do all the cooking is when the golden hour hits, and I can't not shoot. It's just not in me.
Exactly. Kids, we're either having dinner at 3 o'clock or we're having it at 7 o'clock. Which one?
Yeah, but it's as simple as that. Yeah.
That's funny.
It's noodles on the jet boil again.
Yeah.
Yep. My kids have just inherited my 2 of my older cameras. Still very good cameras. They take good pictures, and I just kind of handed them over a couple of weeks ago, and they spent literally the entire Saturday, because I hinted to them, they were talking about these little digital cameras they had, and I said, look, I think you kids are old enough to take my big cameras out. And the entire Saturday they were out there taking photos of absolutely everything from leaves to patterns in nature to bark and sticks and rocks and whatever. And at the end of the day, my wife said, thanks for doing that. She said, without realizing that they've had an entire day just out in nature. Now, given we've got 3/4 of an acre and it's heavily wooded, so there is a lot to explore out there. But still, I thought, yeah, you're right. That's a pretty good, a day well spent.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I'm not forcing. My kids are still young, 6 and the twin girls are 4. And
have you got twin girls as well?
I knew this had come up.
Oh man,
twin girls that are 4.
How old are yours,
I got
Craig?
twin girls that are 5.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, mine are 5 this year.
Yeah, mine are just turned 5.
I was thinking about that at home the other day. I thought if the topic comes up of kids, it's going to be the biggest coincidence of all time.
Man, yeah, wasn't that hectic? So you've got a boy that's older than that?
Yeah, he's 2 years older.
Yeah, same here. Wow, man, that's crazy. Yeah,
Are they close together, their birthdays?
the twins?
The twins, obviously, but the twins and the young fella.
Yeah, so
like, are they
he's
the same date?
December 28, then November 28. 2 years apart.
Yeah, our Oscar's on the September 18th, and the girls are September 16th.
Oh, so it's almost
wow.
exactly 2
So
years.
yeah,
Oh, my
it was
goodness.
Mate.
Till they're 18, it's just going to be everyone's having a party on the weekend, and
Yeah.
that's it.
That's
We'll
it.
do one big weekend.
Yeah.
It's like your June, right? At your place.
Oh yeah, my June is 4 out of the 5 of the family, 3 of which are within about 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we just pretty much write off a week and say that's birthday week.
Birthday week.
And we've started doing something together. Like, okay, it's our birthday. Let's go away for a couple of days somewhere and stay at a cabin or take the caravan out or whatever, So that's kind of pretty nice. I hope that tradition continues.
Yeah, I think we it's just easier logistically. You know? And anything you can do with twins that's easier logistically.
It's hard work. Hey, Shawn, how did you cope with the first 2 years when you had 3 of them so
Mate,
young?
I was away all the time.
Oh, lucky you. Should I
know,
say that? No, that's
No, you can't. No, you do not say it. No.
do not say it. No,
You have
that's
to edit that out later, Craig.
that was hard work, man. Yeah, it takes a lot out of you those sort of first couple of years, eh?
It is though. Yeah, they are a handful, and it's funny. You kind of feel this. You've gone from this 2 years of bonding with one child where your attention is just absolutely all over them. You're smothering them and adoring them, and they're loving it, and then all of a sudden you've got this like neglect going on unintentionally to this 2-year-old who now really wants your attention, because they can walk around and run into corners and fall downstairs, and it's not like you just leave them on the ground and they can't go anywhere.
Right.
So
Are your girls identical?
yes, they are.
Yeah, mine too. That's fucking
Yeah, look at that.
wow.
We should go camping together.
Yeah, that's good. That'd be amazing. My
Well-
kids look like clones, even though they're years apart.
Yeah, we should
And
design
you can
some.
tell the difference between yours easily as parents.
Yeah, but no,
I
not,
thought
not
you were
really
asking
easily.
me then for a second.
No, I
I
seriously
hope you could with
Yeah,
yours.
most of the time I can.
Oh, as you know, man, you get it wrong all the time. You just have to ask them which one they are sometimes. It's incredible. You're Phoebe, right?
I do
You're
that
Phoebe.
whenever I'm here. I say, which one are you?
Yeah.
Well, ours are starting to get quite angry at it, especially if the extended family ask or the cousins ask that don't see them, and cousins that are like 6 or 7, and they're like, "Who are you?" And they're like, "I'm Amelia." Like,
Don't you know?
How don't you know who I am? Like, and having this,
Really?
this identity crisis.
Yeah.
Like, no one knows who I am.
Oh, jeez.
They're 4.
Yeah, that's right.
They can say no in 7 languages. Sass has come out. It's but they're funny. They have their own little, spirits and their own little, emotional tannies that you have to navigate individually. You can't kind of treat them as one.
That's right.
They're very much individual. But they're best friends.
Yeah.
Have they been introduced to camping or anything like that yet?
Yeah. Yeah, they love it. We've done a couple of camping trips now. My wife's stepfather's got a place out in Bathurst. Got a fair bit of land out there, and we try to get out there a fair bit and just let them run wild. And the girls will probably spend more time upstairs and sleep in the house. But the last time we were there, I had to do 2 weeks in there for COVID. Had to get out of Sydney before I could get back up to Queensland.
Oh, right.
And the little dude and I just slept in the swag every night.
Oh, that's cool.
He's really in that, he's quite inquisitive.
Yep.
And he's really just enjoying, absorbing everything. I actually caught him throwing I probably shouldn't say this, but he found a box of cans that, that were being left as little bombs for the campfire, and he thought he'd try and throw one in, and all I saw was this fireball come flying out, and he'd look on his face, he'd shit himself. He was like, uh-oh.
What have I done?
Uh-oh, And I'm like, what do I do here? Do I yell at him and he's going to get, he's going to probably build up some emotional thing to this, or I just sit there and say, next time you do it, let Dad be involved, I want to have some fun.
Yes.
So I went with that route, and then obviously the serious parenting after. But he wants to explore. He's getting on motorbikes now, and
Oh wow.
So all three of them are starting to really fall in love with it. And my parents just picked up a camper trailer, which comes in a couple of weeks, and they want to go out in that and try that out, and that's all fancy and new, and so
another excuse for you to
absolutely
to tack on and
Straight
take
out.
your family out there.
Yep. Yeah, if I can grip it out of Mum and Dad's hands. They're pretty keen to start
I thought you
travelling.
meant go with them, but you're saying borrow it.
Yeah, it's probably, they'll want to sleep in it, and, and then, I don't know, there's an upside. Mum could do all the cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've already told us your cooking's pretty average, so
Yeah, I can do 2-minute noodles and couscous in a jet boil.
Yeah,
And I can do a
okay.
mean steak on the fire,
I straight on the coals.
straight on the coals.
I'd never experienced that until I went to Craig's uncle's place, and he I'm probably boring a listener here because I think they've probably heard it before, but I was just leaving to go out to the spot. I was doing 3 days solo out there, and I visit them at the house, and then I'd jump in my car, drive down the back, leave the car, and then I'd hike into the wilderness. And just as I was heading out to the car, his uncle said, see if there's a steak in the freezer for Tom. And he goes, hang around a minute, and they pull out this massive T-bone, the size like bigger than a plate, and just hand me this T-bone, and so there you go, get into that. And so I ended up taking it with me, and because I'd heard also because he was telling me that his son, which is Craig's cousin, would throw them on the coals, and I thought that sounds crazy. I have to try this, but it just gives a quite an amazing smoky kind of flavour too, doesn't
Flavouring,
it?
yep.
It's
absolutely.
incredible, and it's not like, I mean, obviously you don't throw them in that white, powdery, dusty
No.
stuff. We're talking about the black, clean coals.
Yep.
But it's quite remarkable. I thought he was joking when he told me, but it's something special.
Yeah, and if you don't want to jump straight into that, you can always do the hot rock first,
Yep.
You can throw it on the hot rock and start there, and that's a nice little introduction to,
Yeah.
I mean, you're scraping off the coals and some of the dirt. You're obviously eating a bit of the land.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good way to have the steak.
It's something special, almost primal about eating off a hot rock that you've just cooked food on.
Yeah, and it's the same with fish, right? I've become a fish snob now. I can't go to a restaurant and look at them seriously when they say fresh fish of the day. It's like I've had one off the hook, and within 45 minutes in a fire eating it. You know?
Yeah.
That's fresh. When I can still taste the adrenaline in the fish, that's fresh.
Yes.
When you still got like your shorts are still wet from wading out there or something.
Yeah. So, and we've had a couple of those experiences where, all we've had for 2-3 days on a remote coastline is swags, cameras, fishing gear, lemon, salt.
Wow.
And that was it. You're just eating barra like every breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Yeah,
Great.
wow. That's
So
incredible.
you do become a bit of a fish snob after eating
Yeah,
any
it wouldn't be
oysters,
hard, would
off
it?
the rocks,
Oh,
and
man.
like.
Yeah, it would be hard to go and eat, like, as you say, what they call fresh.
Yeah.
Something that I actually did a bit of research on it after I saw some of your pictures, was that, is it pronounced Finky or Fink, that desert race?
Fink.
Fink
Yeah,
is
Fink
Fink.
Desert Race.
So yeah, the Fink Desert Race, just for the listeners, correct me if I get anything wrong here, but it's they have over 600 races, and they drive 460 kilometers from Alice Springs to a small town which is called Aputula? No.
Yeah, which is basically it's called
Aputula,
Fink.
yeah, and
Yeah.
in brackets, the Fink community.
Yep.
And those races are, divided up sort of. They can be, off-road bikes to the off-road buggies, and then modded up cars as well, can't they?
Yeah, so there's multiple classes there. So the cars go out first, and the cars are everything from like a pretty beefed up four-wheel drive or a ute through to Polaris buggies, Can-Ams, and then trophy trucks.
Right.
So there's a trophy truck element. So people like Toby Price, who's Australia's best off-road racer. He's a national icon. He was doing the bike thing, but he's been doing the trophy truck as well now. So he will drive the trophy truck down, then he would get in a helicopter, go back to the start line, get on his bike, and go down on his bike, and then do it again the next day.
Oh, wow.
So he unfortunately hasn't completed it mechanically. He kind of gets unstuck. The car's kind of fail. It's not him. He's a machine behind anything. But it's an incredible event. It's a hard spectator sport unless you have a chopper, because you just kind of see him come straight past you in the middle of the desert, and then
then you don't see him again.
And that's it. So you kind of can't watch one racer. You need to watch everyone that's coming down. But it's absolutely brutal. The last place I was just working at, and I was working for a show called Patriot Games, which is on YouTube. He's been racing in the Polaris buggies for the last couple of years, and now he's into the trophy truck, and we'll be competing in the trophy truck class this year.
Yeah, right. Are you expecting to or hoping to film that one again if the
I'm not
opportunity
sure.
comes up?
I'd love to go down again. It's another great event and another way.
From what I read, it said it was like one of the biggest events in that whole area each year. Yeah,
it's huge, and like I said, it's a spectacle. They have everything from the up in Alice at the airport there, they get all the cars together, and there's a prologue, so all the qualifying elements to it, and then there's the registration element when they put all the cars on show, and you get to meet the drivers. See the cars up close, and before they take off the next couple of days.
So you were on assignment there. Essentially, you were filming for them.
Yeah.
Then how does that work logistically? Because you're following, was it one vehicle or two vehicles?
So for that season when I was there, we just had the one race vehicle.
So there's one vehicle, you're following one vehicle. Like you said before, you can't just stand there at the start line, get the footage of them taking off, and then wait until they get back, because there's no story in that. How are you moving
there's a bit
around?
of TV magic that happens to achieve that, and a big logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
Essentially, you can't even chase the cars because the speed they're going.
Because they're too fast. Yeah,
and we're on a service road next to them, but at certain points they cross that service road, so the service road will get closed down, and you lose them. But there's an element there where you want to be there in case a mechanical happens.
Yeah.
But we put anywhere between 5 to 6 cameras on board.
Right.
So there'll be 5 fixed cameras, and then there'll be a GoPro on a vlogging mount that if anything goes down, and the cameras have to, if we have to relocate, if we have to get there, they can at least start to tell their story without us.
Right. So they can just get stuck into saying this is what's just happened. We're waiting for the crew. Yeah. So the on races like this, they're allowed to have a support mechanical crew. Is there rules around that?
You can. So the mechanical crews have to get down to Fink anyway, because usually they need to fix whatever's happened from that night, and they've got overnight to fix them. But you can't offer any support on the side of the road. They have to look after it themselves, and they have to be self-sufficient. But if something goes wrong out there, it's usually the cars are right off. So you just really are a recovery vehicle at that stage. You're picking it up, and that's the race event over. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. It is brutal on the body, and brutal on the gear. You see people limping in with like wheels falling off and crabbing in, and they've made it down, and they're like, you know what, just making it. It doesn't matter where we place, just getting there and back is the accomplishment.
Yeah.
So it's a wild event. It's a great event to film because you're out, especially at the Fink end, you've got all that beautiful desert and remoteness again in that red soil. And it's just it's a stunning landscape and a backdrop, and if you're lucky enough to cover it, from a chopper as well, which I know we were talking about for the next season, but then we couldn't go because of COVID. Because we would have had to cover 2 vehicles. We would have needed the chopper to go back and forth.
Yep.
And we'll send the day before, we'll send another camera guy down to the Fink end and be ready, and then on the way back, the main cameras would leave 2, 3, 4 hours beforehand at like 4 o'clock in the morning and drive up and then wait for them at the finish line.
Wow.
And tell the story up that end.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible.
But it's an incredible event. Like and it's going ahead this year, which is great. I think it kicks off in kind of June, mid-June, and
not
it's
that
really,
far away.
it's really good.
Really?
Yeah.
No,
that coincides with
awesome.
a lot of those desert events. Big Red Bash and stuff all happen around that same time, July and stuff. So it really
when it cools
encourages
off.
people to get, into the exactly. It cools down. Yeah, encourages people to get out to the desert, which is awesome.
Oh, that's incredible. Mate, I can't. It would be. I would regret it if I let you go without talking about your Mongolian adventure, because there's a whole array of photographs that you've shared over a period of time, and it's hard to kind of piece that story together. But is that something you'd be able to do for us? Yeah,
mate. I think Mongolia. It is probably one of the best trips I've ever done, and in that had elements that were some of the best experiences that I've ever done.
Wow.
And that's going up against forging our own track back in the 4Drive Action days to going to Iraq, and all of those have their own merits for certain reasons, and some of that comes down to crew and what happened in isolation. But Mongolia is just so. It's so different to anything that I've ever done. Fundamentally, it's the same. We were forward driving and overlanding and camping, but it was the ability of the day one when we left town. You quickly realise that there's a population that lives in the city, and then the rest of the population live completely nomadic. They life has not changed for them for hundreds of years. It's exactly the same.
Wow.
And you quickly get immersed into it, and you start to see just random families popping up in their accommodation across just open plains with multiple different landscapes and backgrounds. And I remember we pulled up, and it's in one of the first episodes, it's on Patriot Games in their season 3. We pulled up to this place, and we said, the sun's going down, let's camp somewhere. And our guides that were with us, they just 90-degree turn, and we drove towards the hills, and we said, is there a secret campsite out here? And he said, no, we're just finding a flat spot. We can camp wherever we want. And to us, that was like, what do you mean? In Australia, everything's bollarded, and you've got camp fees, and you can't go off the road, and everything's national parks. It was like, no, you can just camp wherever you want. You can lay your swag down, lay whatever you want down, and pull up stumps.
Cool.
And we did that, and then that continued to just kind of every single day was compounding with the excitement and the experiences, and that led us to going on horseback for 2 and 3 days to go and meet right up the northern part of Mongolia, right up near Russia. We went 2 days on horseback, and at the end of that ride, we were meeting with reindeer herding families. Mm-hmm. And we stayed in their teepees that night. We milked reindeers the next morning, and we sat down with them. We couldn't speak.
Does glitter come out?
Yeah, Santa wasn't too happy. I can tell you that much. He's a grumpy fella.
Yeah, I bet.
But it was interesting to sit down. We couldn't, we didn't speak any language. They didn't speak English. They were doing, like, I was flying the drone, and to them that was so foreign. To me, it's just the drone, But they couldn't comprehend looking at my screen and then looking in the air and then seeing the guys on the horses and then back, and it was just there was something humbling in that all this technology and all these things that we take for granted, these people haven't even seen it. They've never heard of it.
Wow.
Did you feel welcomed by them?
Yes, absolutely. They're very More so outside the city. The city is just another city, and people have adapted to living, very Western cultural ways. And but once we left, like we just turned up to a family's yurt, and they invited us in to have yak milk. Just and that's their produce. That's what they live off. That's what they trade off, and they fed 14 of us.
Oh wow!
Just with and I think what we gave them in the end was just a handful of bullets. It wasn't money. Money's no good to them. They needed bullets to help them hunt. You know.
Yep.
Because then they could take that fox that they kill, they could give that fur, and they could sell that meat, and it's very much like that.
Wow, that's
still
incredible.
Yeah, but that's ignited something in me with the horseback kind of thing. I'd love to do horseback adventures now and live off the back of a horse for a couple of days and pack horse, and I'm finding it hard to find a place to do that in Australia at the moment, actually. But you ride all day, you jump off the back of your horse, give him some water, and then you lay down next to him, you sleep next to him, and then they're your alarm clock in the morning, and up you go and off you go again. It was amazing, an amazing experience. And I think the only thing that I didn't enjoy about it was the fact that I had to constantly film it. I just wanted to immerse myself and enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been there without it.
Yeah, well, that's true as well. And I mean, we've touched on it earlier that the end of your day is not when you arrive and set up camp. It's then you go into backing up your footage and recharge your batteries and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I guess what you say there is, well, you wouldn't be there if you weren't doing that. So kind of and let's face it, it's better than a desk job.
Yeah, 100%. When I have to come back and cut the shows and get editing, I get antsy. It's I've got to get back out there, and some of the shows we used to do a couple of weeks filming and then a couple of weeks back, and then it's kind of migrated into doing a block filming and then a block editing, a block filming, and I'm more at home in the bush, and the office is definitely not for me.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that, because I reckon some people do sort of you do something for too long, and you can kind of, the last thing you want to do when you get back is to go back out to the bush. You just want to stay in the city. But it's good to hear that you've really built a love for it, and you're taking that on into moving forward now with your kids and so forth. Good on you.
Yeah, and I think what I've always tried to do as well is, and this comes back to not wanting to be a photographer on the trips. I've done a lot of photography, and I still do. But I've never I've never done it for work. I've always kept that as my own creative passion and my own release.
Yep.
I would never work as a photographer. I'd never do any jobs as a photographer
Might
because
spoil it.
I don't want it to. I don't think it would if I was in those environments, but I just don't. I want to keep that. And I think that's probably what I'll do more this year is when I'm out there by myself is enjoy it, take a few snaps, and then sit back and put the camera down and that could just be, if I'm not out with the kids, that might be purely for memories and something visual to show them when I get back. Here's where Dad was, and here's what I was doing, and and this is what we can do next time we go out, and
yeah, that's the first thing that happens when I get back from a trip is kids come in the office and hook the laptop up to the big screen, and I just download all my SD cards, and we just go through.
Movie night.
Yeah, we just go through each clip, and they absolutely love it. They think it's the best, and I think, oh geez, I've got weeks of editing to do.
Yeah.
Hasn't even started yet.
Hey kids, let me show you through Lightroom.
Yeah, you need to learn this stuff.
Yeah. As you can see, Daddy shot this overexposed by about 2 shots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press auto and hope it comes back.
Yeah.
Secrets.
Shawn, thanks so much for sharing everything with us tonight. It's been fantastic, and I think that it's probably shed a lot of light on the sort of work that you do. We were talking last week, and it's something that now you've kind of decided to start seeking out your own stories and telling your own stories with a good friend / colleague of yours. Is that what you see as that is the next step for you now?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that's the end game here is helping brands and communicate their own stories, and that's within that 4-drive and adventure space. I think my love of passion of the traveling here in Australia, and I love traveling overseas as well, and purely because that gives me great appreciation for back here in Australia. And if I can help brands connect with audiences to get them out to do it as well through storytelling, then yeah, I'm doing what I love at that stage. And so good mate of mine, Scott, and we've decided we've been in this game for a long time, telling other people's stories, and it's nice to turn it back around and kind of think about the brands and the customer, and give them a little bit of the lifestyle that we've had, and we've been fortunate to have, and we're still doing, and that could be, could be on a campaign that we're doing for somebody, or it could just be us out there, on our own little trip and just doing it on our own socials. But that love for storytelling, and because I've always wanted to be a wildlife cinematographer, but every single cinematographer wants to be a wildlife cinematographer. You can thank Attenborough for that.
Yeah. Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. The more people interested in the wildlife, the longer it'll hopefully stay there.
Yeah, so I think Scott's also a big wildlife guy and a bear guy.
Yeah, Scott's got some. I'll put his links up in the show notes as well. Southern Sky Images AU. He's beautiful still photographer, fantastic wildlife, landscape, all sorts of stuff.
We just have those same camp values and nature values, and it we can talk to each other about things without even saying a word. You know what I mean? We both kind of understand it, and we've come up together. We did that big 5-month trip together across the country, and that's when we first met. And
that was when you first met. Okay.
Yeah. So we threw into the deep end in 5 months on the road with each other, and we came out the other side good mates. So
that's good.
We've always said that we'd like to tell stories our way, and when we get that timing right, and now that's upon us, and it's going to be a really exciting year. I think we're starting going out at the moment. We're just about to go on another trip in a couple of weeks.
Oh, fantastic!
Are
we allowed to ask the scoop, or is it super top secret?
It's not top secret at all. I wish it is. It's just purely another asset trip to start generating some stuff to show clients. But we're heading up. He's getting some new stuff into his patrol, and we're heading up to like Gloucester Way, northern New South Wales.
Okay.
We just did the Snowy Mountains in New South Wales, so we're just trying to change up the scenery. And I think there'll be a trip out to the desert as well, just to make sure we're covering off.
Yeah, just try and get all those those big landscapes.
Yeah, and really that's just a bullshit excuse to go travelling again. But,
on another damn work trip.
But for tax purposes, it has to be a work trip. So.
Exactly. There was a funny, quite funny banter exchange between you guys on one of your posts I was reading, and I almost felt like a bit awkward being there, because it was almost like I was listening into a conversation that was between two mates, but you guys were going back, and he's saying, remember that trip? And you're saying, oh, I couldn't believe it. Remember when this happened? And how about the sandflies and all this? And you could tell that you guys had done some tough trips together.
Yeah, we've got some pretty awesome stories from some pretty awesome time on the road together. I mean, that 5-month trip, I think I came home from that less fatigued than I've ever come home on even like a 2-week trip. It was just something about the traveling with the right crew that made it not a job. Back to that original point, not a job. It's a lifestyle, and it's a passion, and we just happen to get paid for it. Yeah,
mate, and it just shines through in your in all of your work, in both your work. But yeah, I like that, and I like your we touched on it earlier about you kind of using this as the year to share your stories instead of I mean, obviously you're still going to tell other people's, but you know what I mean, like using this as the year to kind of give your perspective on things. So I'm looking forward to seeing the next Cooks a Carbon video and the next trip and all this sort of stuff. Selfishly, I get to enjoy these things as a user of Instagram.
Well, we'll just have to get you out with your chili con carne. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah. Done. You just got to, as I said, send location. I'll be there. Mate, it's been an absolute cracker talking to you, Shawn. It's fantastic. Again, thanks for your time, mate.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, normally I wouldn't have done this. Like I said, that fear of chatting about it, but this has been great. I think, just the conversation and a chance to just kind of talk about what I do and what I love and I really appreciate you guys having me on. It's been awesome.
No, absolutely.
I could talk forever.
Yeah, so could we. That's why I'm conscious of that. Look, you said earlier that if you can inspire somebody to get out and do things and that sort of thing. I mean, this platform, you've got your Instagram, but I really hope, and I just know that this platform goes out to listeners around the world, and I just know some of them are going to take, your stories and what you've said, and they're going to kind of run with it. And so I guess that's ticking another box for you, mate, because I know people are going to get value out of this. So yeah,
that's awesome. And like I'm always there to add value. If anyone wants to connect, I'm always in my DMs, and you can slide on in and ask anything you want. I'm an open book. If I can and help you anywhere and inspire you to get out there and or you just go backyard camping, or how to make a terrible beer meal in the backyard. Like if I can do anything,
that's a beautiful gesture.
Yeah, mate. I reckon you're speaking to the choir here. I reckon we all love that sort of talk, and you've been to some really, really special places too, and I can just tell through what we've been talking about that it's brought a real richness to your life, Shawn. So thanks for sharing it with us tonight, mate.
Yeah,
not a problem, mate. Appreciate it.
Good on you, mate. You take care out there on the road and the trail, and as I said, looking forward to watching it all.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, mate. Take care, buddy. If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes, we'd really appreciate your ratings and comments if you can spare the time. If you'd like to know more about Hike or Die TV and keep track of our adventures around Australia, make sure you drop by HikeordieTV.com. That's where you'll find all the information you'll need to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or Pinterest. As always, we appreciate your support. Thanks for listening.